Good morning. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the parts of the license application and give you practical tips to help you complete it correctly. Also to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California contractor's license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test date. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the government agency responsible for regulating the California construction industry. I'm Anna Rodriguez, Enforcement Supervisor. Joining us today is Licensing Supervisor Fode Garagoslo. Good morning, Fode.
Good morning. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, and 1 representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note, CSLB test centers are open now. They were closed from December through February due to COVID-19. Applicants will have to take safety precautions on test day. That includes wearing a mask and more. We'll get into those details a little bit later. If you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to participate, you'll need to join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link at the top of our homepage on www.cslb.ca.gov. That is also where you can download this presentation if you'd like to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout this workshop. We're going to be presenting a lot of information to you, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive this video and put it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again if you need to. To ask a question, you're going to want to use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature. And you can find the Q&A feature on the bottom right of your screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during the workshops on how you can document your work experience, and also about what credit you can get for your education or military services. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of our workshop. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation. The presentation itself should take about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractor's License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on the CSLB website or purchase directly from the publisher LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
Here's a list of what we're going to be covering today. We will take you through the process for applying for the California Contractor's License. First, we're going to be talking about who needs a license, why get a contractor's license, the minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, and what credits you might qualify for. We're also going to be talking about the types of business entities we offer, the different CSLB license classifications, and we will spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We're also going to be discussing fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check, and we will help you get ready for the exam or exams that you're going to need to pass in order to get your license. Finally, we'll talk about other things that you'll need to have in place before you get your license. For example, things such as a bond or insurance.
First, today we will take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. The total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals 500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We've got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I will read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner, building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, proposes to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should you get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows that you've actually taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do that work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with a fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines which can run anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a licensed preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it is important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operation, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, your technical training, and your apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions about this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications that we receive and process every month, we do not have the staff time that it would require to prejudge anybody's experience. We can only review your documents after you have applied for a license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must directly relate to the work you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will still need to have at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of educational credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB written documents. Then that means that we'll need a copy of your apprenticeship completion certificates if you have them, or you get official technical school or college transcripts. You're going to want to get those transcripts sent to you. Do not open the envelope. Leave it sealed and then include it with the CSLB application packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience you will need to get your license, this is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for 4-year education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages, or you will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We are not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in construction management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a Master's of Bachelor degree in business or a law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An Associate in Science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in a major besides construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for C20 HVAC and C43 sheet metal classifications only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you have taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program, where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of our CSLB test centers. One exam is on the California business law. The other is in the specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend a lot of time talking about the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page here. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all of the workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partner or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of licensees. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when you fill out your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 different categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of this screen here. First is our Class A or general engineering contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is our Class B or general building contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless that contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing and carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C or specialty contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include C10 electrical contractors, C20 HVAC contractors, C27 landscaping contractors, C36 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 solar contractors, and C53 swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB is excited to announce our first new licensing classification in a decade. is called the B2 Residential Remodeling Classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have a structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here is what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. Also, they cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modification to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licensees also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, a B2 applicant or licensee must comply with CSLB experience, examination, license bar, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. CSLB will begin accepting applications for the B2 license on June 1st. Exam dates will begin in August. If you have more questions about the B2, email the licensing division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you are ready to apply for a license, here are 2 forms that you're going to need. On the left is our license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on CSLB's website. There is a bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little bit later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you are using an RME or responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they are unwilling or maybe even don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options: application for original contractor license and application for original contractor license examination waiver 7065. We've got links to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is to determine your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you're getting. For example, if you're going to be applying for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company name of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The name of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what is called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main things to remember here is that the DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and also on your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago. There's a bonus link at the bottom of this screen as well for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge, and you have to be sure to include a copy of your military DD 214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. You want to make sure that you proofread for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application. Finally, determine if you're going to need a special accommodation to take your examination. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next is a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We've got a link here, or you can simply go to Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You'll also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you are out of a state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them, the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. When things settle down with COVID-19, you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you do have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years from the application date to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications that we receive based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprint information page at the bottom of this page here.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop, and that part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level, or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee, and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if you need to, or attach more at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms that you need in order to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. And you want to remember to be as accurate as possible. Make sure that the person that is certifying your work describes the actual work that you perform and the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples for you to use.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of the experience you are trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we will keep repeating is the more specific this description, the better. The work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification you are applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example here is for a Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for the journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work and should be something like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something more generic, something like this. Can we show the unacceptable? Residential general building trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something like this. Residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at a supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, unacceptable would be something like this. Residential general building trades. So you can get the idea, we want more description. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, as a foreperson, or a supervising employee. A tip, be specific about the duties and your employment circumstances. Our next example is going to be for a C-27 landscaping contractor. First, let's talk about the experience needed for a journey person level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be something like this. Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C-27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like this. Jane oversaw staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Something unacceptable, again, would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C-27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be something like this. As a construction lead on multiple projects, Jane supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would also be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for the general building contractors would apply. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as the work that you did for military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and the employment circumstances. By law, CSLB randomly reviews and verifies all the information provided on at least 3% of the applications we receive. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application gets selected and you are asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You only need to provide this information if it's requested by CSLB staff. On the lower right of the screen, you'll see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see that the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B general contractor license and you need to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available to you now, you may want to begin to gather it, just in case you're asked to provide this in the future. Remember, you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of your experience in order to verify your experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications a month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They have got 2 pieces of advice. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you will need to fill out your application. Before getting into CSLB, double check to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You will pay the $200 initial licensing fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB, hand delivered to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
Okay, now that we have gone through the information that you're going to need to include, here's a closer look at the application itself so that you can see where all the information goes. Section 1 is where you're going to list your business name. Remember, when you select a business name, you want to make sure that that name that you've selected is compatible with the classification that you're applying for and also with the entity that you're applying for, and that it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section here matches exactly the business name registered with the Secretary of State. In line number 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address here and the phone number that you're going to list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. In section 2, you will list your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifiers information. Remember, the qualifier is the person who has the experience requirements and also is going to be responsible for the direct supervision and control of the construction operations. The qualifier is also the person who takes the exams. On line number 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you're going to be the only person on the license, then you would enter 100%. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity that you are selecting. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here, but they're pretty easy to fill out. Next is Section 6. You may be granted credit towards your 4 years experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get those sealed transcripts sent directly to you. Then you want to include them with your application packet. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB. You do not want to take the chance that we're not able to match them up with your application, so have them mailed directly to you. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. The credit is not given to you on a year-to-year basis, meaning just because you have a 2-year college degree doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be granted 2 years of credit towards your experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in another language other than English, it must be evaluated and translated before sending it to CSLB. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information for your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure you mark the box in line number 2. Part 2 is going to be filled out by the certifier, the person that you select to certify your work experience. In section 2, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you are working part-time, you will only receive 50% of the credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet that 48-month requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classification booklet available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what it is CSLB considers to be critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you, and you can see that they can check one of the boxes. They can be an employer, a journeyman, a fellow employee, another contractor, a union representative, a foreman or a supervisor, or a business associate. They need to provide their contact information as well. And they will need to sign and date your certification. The next form we will discuss is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working projects on your own property. A separate form is going to be required for each project on your property. The experience has to be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, or other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number here on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In box 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project itself. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades did they perform. Remember, the information in this section should be as complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information Anna just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We will post a video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch in case there is anything you missed. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are two resources. First is the secure check. You will need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So, look for the date being worked on and know that date shown is if the date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork, it's likely we are busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we process them in the order they are received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start the processing process again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID-19. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test center.
If you are an applicant whose first language is not English and you do not feel confident taking your exam in English, we will allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads your exam questions. Question number 15 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of your examination to the test center with somebody who is willing to translate the exam for you. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee. That fee may be waived once with the documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each of the study guides you will find a list of sections and topics covered by each exam. They also include sample questions and how each section of the exam is weighted. They also have a recommended list of resources that you can use to prepare for the examination. These study guides are available online on our website currently. There's a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen here.
Here is a quick look at 2 of those study exams. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create the exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. You will also note on the lower right of both these slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open. We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on test day. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video of what to expect on your test date. You can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you will see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You will also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about the question. You will get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18 months period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
So after you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay a $200 initial licensing fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor bond, and possibly other bonds depending on what type of business entity you have. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you're going to have employees, you will need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. Please see our website for more information. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations when you're going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you are going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, May 7th, 2021, will expire by end of the May 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need, so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or if you change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we have on file. If you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to receive it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of your license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called Home Improvement Salesperson, or HIS. Without an HIS, The official personnel of record on a license are the only ones that can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That include individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. A home improvement salesperson, or HIS, can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate a HIS with their license.
So there are a couple of exceptions that we want to let you know about. First are those who only schedule appointments for contractors or registered HIS. And bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks that you call out to perform repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you have to call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and then try to sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. And don't employ unregistered salespeople. That would subject you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation as well, possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of this page if you want to look at the actual code section of law pertaining to HIS.